In this video, we're going to add some girders to support our floor joists because this span is too long to be able to support these joists, these floor joists going all the way across. So go to structure, beam. So a girder is it's a larger beam that supports other beams or joists. And so we'd want to pick probably like doesn't need to be, let's see, let's load another family. So like you do like a 4x8 or 4x6. So let's go up and select from structural framing, wood, dimension lumber, and let's pick a 4x6. And we're going to give it a -3/4 Z offset and leave it the Z justification as top. And so what we'll do is we'll just pick in our floor joist system and drag it across. And we'll trim, extend to the inside of the foundation wall. So you can go to Modify tab, Trim Extend, and then you'll pick your foundation wall. We'll cut a section to make sure that we've extended to the correct location. But whatever you hover over, you can see on the bottom what it's actually extending to. So if you look at the bottom left corner, you can see that we're extending to the basic wall foundation 8-inch concrete, reference R1. And that's on the bottom right below the properties palette. If you have your properties palette docked to the left, or I'm sorry, the bottom left underneath the properties palette. And we could probably space these let's throw a dimension on here. Go to annotate, linear dimension, or align dimension, sorry. From the concrete wall, we'll throw a dimension to the center of this girder. And let's start at 5 feet. And then we can actually do an array. And I guess potentially, let's do this. I'm going to delete that beam. We'll do another beam system. So I'm going to actually tab and select the beam system that we already have. And I'm going to go to this section. I'm going to move the section over here. We can grab the structural beam system and we can copy it down the 9¼ inches. So essentially we'll have two beam systems, but this beam system we're going to change the direction and change what the beam is. So we can select that beam system family. I'm going to change it from 2x10 to, what do we do, 4x6. And then we'll come back over in our plan with that still selected. And then edit boundary. And we'll want to change the beam direction. Instead of going north and south, we'll change it going east to west. And we'll change the spacing to 5 feet. And then hit OK. And now you can see it added our girders. What we'll want to do, now as we can see the last girder kind of put on the top of our wall, which we don't want that. So I just changed the layout rule to maximum spacing. I'm going to see if there's a good layout rule that we can apply so we don't have to actually move them. And I think what we'll do also is edit this profile. I'm going to trim and just make it square. And so yeah, it looks like the best thing to do would be to make the profile from this south stem wall up to the northernmost wall, and we could add another girder here to pick up these last joists, but I think they can span that distance. Or we could increase, let's see, if we did 7 feet. It really doesn't change it too much, so I think that'll be good. Now we can go into this section we had cut earlier and check these out. And see, now it's placed this girder below all of our other beams. And then what I think the best thing to do now is we're going to actually place some posts along here so that this girder is supported by posts and footings. So we'll go up to our structure and choose column. And let's load a family. We'll load a 4x4 column. Oops, that was a beam family, so we'll go back up and select structural columns, wood, dimension lumber, and a 4x4. And then we'll want it to be depth, and we'll just place it at 2 feet for now. And let's place it close to where our section view is so that we can see. Make sure we choose the 4x4. And we can see we now have this post. And we'll want to give it a negative offset. So go to your annotate tab. Choose align dimension. And we'll want it to be a negative 1 foot 3.5. So right now from level 1, we want the top of it to be negative 1 foot 3.5. Oops. And then I think also we'll need to fix this topography so that the topography actually is down here at the top of this footing on beneath the crawl space. So we need the topography in the underneath the house to be a negative 2 foot 11.5. So we'll place a point at negative 2 foot 11.5. And then we'll want it to be 2 foot 11.5. So right now from level 1, we want the top of it to be negative 1 foot 3.5. So we'll place a point at negative 2 foot 11.5. And then we'll want it to be negative 1 foot 3.5. So we'll place a point at negative put 11.5. And I'm just going to come here around the footing and add these points. And hit OK. I'm going to turn on the topography in this view so we can see it when we're editing it. You can see I'm just adding some additional points just to flatten out this topography underneath the footing here. So it looks relatively flat. I'm going to actually add one over here. Get an align dimension and just get the bottom of this. So I'm going to add some across here that are 1'5". So that the ground is right beneath our garage slab. So negative 1'5.5. And I'm just placing some on the other side of that -2 so we can get the grade back down past here. Alright, so let's go back to our post that we just placed. And we'll want to give it a offset so that it goes to the top of this to the footing here. So we select your post, take the dimension to the top of your footing, and it's going to be -1 foot 8. Oops, let's see. Oh, wrong direction. It'll actually be -1 foot 8 plus -1 3/2. So it'll be -2 foot 11 1/2. Yeah. And the next thing we'll want to do is we'll want to come up to here to structure and structural foundations. And let's load just a rectangular structural foundation. So go back to the English Imperial, structural foundations, and just pick this footing rectangular. And let's edit this type, and we'll leave it at 1 foot 6 depth, but we'll call it a 2 foot by 2 foot foundation. Let's see, how deep is our other one? So it looks like our footing for our exterior is 1 foot, so let's make this 1 foot as well. So we'll edit this type, make it 1 foot, and let's rename it to 24 inch by 24 inch. By the depth, by 12 inches. Let's select both of them, and then we're going to make this into a group. So on the Modify tab, this button right next to the filter is a Create a Group, and we'll just we'll call it girder support. So now I can select that, and I'm going to move it over 1 joist space. And then I'm going to array. So I don't think we've done an array before. It's up on the Modify tab, and you see the 4 little squares with the top one that's just highlighted white. So we can do an array. And so first you'll pick that, and it's going to ask you, although it's not apparent, but the first thing you do is you pick any point and drag to get its spacing. So I'm going to make them let's make it just make it 5 feet. Actually, I'm undo and redo that array, so select the array or the group, click array, pick anywhere, drag over 5 feet. And we can add whatever number we want for the array. So let's we'll have it array 10, and then see if that gets us to the other side of the building. Yeah, it gets us pretty close. I'm going to change the spacing. I think if I just move, nope. Oops, see, we put one in the end wall, so we only need 9. But I think what we'll do is, I think I'm going to delete this array. Just going to undo so I can get a spacing that I like. I think 5 feet was not enough, or it was too. Let's do 6'8", just so it'll be always underneath a joist. Or, yeah, I think that'll be good. So now we can do array a third time. Hit array. We'll pick 6'8", and then I think 9 was the number that was good. Make sure it didn't put one at the end. Good. And we can actually array, or we can actually just copy this array down. We can select all the groups. Hit copy. Let's just copy them to the girder. So I'm going to hit copy again. Make sure to check multiple so you can do multiple copies, and pick them to be below the other girders. And let's also add this footing to the bottom of our posts on the outside. I'm going to move this down so we can see our footing. Add a footing to this this post. Then we'll go to structure, isolated structural foundation. And let's take a dimension. So I took a dimension from the level 1 to the bottom of my post. So I'm going to give this a -2 foot offset. And then because I made these posts a group already, I can edit the group. And I'm going to add elements to the group. So I'm going to add this footing to the group. Hit finish. And now it's added these footings to all of our groups. So we only had to do that once, because that's the nice thing about making groups, similar to blocks in AutoCAD. So next, let's add some details. So if we go to View, And we'll do section. And let's choose detail view. So if you go to view, and you hit section, and then in the properties pile to bring up the building section. And let's click detail view. Let's get a detail view of this footing. We just drag over. And if it's going the wrong direction, you can either flip it or move it. And now we have a detail of this footing that we just placed. So if you right click on it and hit go to view, and we can drag the view down. Let's go to our view graphics, our visibility graphics, turn the topography to 50% transparent. So we can see our footing. Let's see. Let's move our section so that it actually cuts the footing too. So I think that'll be a better view. Yep, and then we can see it. And we can actually turn our topography back to, we'll just select the transparency clear override and hit OK. And let's add some other details, and we'll add these to a sheet as well. So I'm going to go to section, detail view. I'm going to pick a section through the garage. I'm going to pick another section through the exterior wall footing where there isn't a deck. I'm going to actually add another detail here. At the deck, I'm going to add another detail section where I have my little bump out for my window. And I'm also going to add, I'll add one also for this exterior footing here. I'm going to add one more for the deck on this side. So let's go up to sheet, create a new sheet. And let's see, what do we have so far? Let's call it 510. And we'll call it footing details. So now we can go into our where all these detail views will come up under our project browser, and then down here under detail views. And we just drag them onto the sheet just to get them placed for now, and then we can start adding more detail to them. I'm going to change all of these from 1/4 inch equals a foot to probably 1 inch equals a foot, so we can actually see them. Here's the first detail we made. And let's see. So if you double click into the view, let's so we're going to just rename this one to girder post footing. Actually, we'll call it girder support at post. And we can dimension our footing. Let's add some text callouts. If we look at our book, there are some similar details that we can use to kind of look at and then know how to kind of detail out these different structural footing and support details. And so that would be in Chapter 10 under Foundations. Now, I don't know that we're going to find the exact detail we need, but that's okay because these are really telling us what we need to know here. So we can kind of go through and glean the information. Basically, they're just calling out the footing and the dimensions and adding rebar and other supports for it. So, but this foundation section will give you a good idea of what kind of things to detail. And I'll go through and show you how I detail them as well. Oh, and also the reference set that I have on Moodle. Let's see. On Moodle, you can find it. Let's see. Well, I'll put a link to it so that you can find it. And I'll put it on this week's list. But if you go to this reference from Veritone Architecture, it kind of shows how they've done their foundation kind of floor framing plan, and then this is some of the details to how they noted their details. We're not going to get as detailed because we're just kind of making this stuff up, and nobody's going to build these. We even need to be a lot more specific if you're going to build them. So for this, we can just go to our annotate, text, and we'll just call this concrete footing. It's a 4x6 girder. And then you always want to avoid doing double callouts. So these joists we've called out in plan. And so we'll do a note that just says floor joists per plan. And we'll call this 1/2 inch plywood sheathing. So there's going to be actually connectors in here, but at this point we'll just leave it. So if you wanted to add the connectors, you'd have to go to architecture, and then we'll place a component, and we'll load. Actually, we want to go to annotate and place a detail component, because we'll just place a we won't actually model these. We'll just show them in this 2D view. So we'll load family, and then I'm going to see if they have the wood connectors. So we'll go to detail items, wood and plastic. I go to this common work results. It says wood fastenings. So yeah, it looks like they've got some hangers and whatnot. So you could come in here and actually add some of the hangers. Let's try this column cap. And let's see. So add another detail component. I don't know that these are the exact right pieces, but they're close enough. And again, we don't have to add them, but if you wanted to add them, the best thing to do is actually to look up, at this point, you'd want to look up a structural catalog. Like Simpson. Not to be confused with The Simpsons. And look up the different types of connectors. Go to wood connectors. It's kind of the same kind of stuff you'd see at Home Depot. Here's a post base. And they actually probably have Revit. Actually, I'm almost sure they have AutoCAD drawings, and probably, yeah, here's a Revit plugin that you could load in. And so what we're looking for would be one that would connect a beam to a Actually, this ripper clip looks like that would be something that we'd want to use. It looks like it connects a beam to a post, or two beams together. It looks like it's for 2x construction. So, and here's where they're using it on top of a joist. It'd be good to look through Simpsons. These different things would be a good way to kind of get familiar with some of the hangers and connectors and whatnot. But you get the idea. So here's some connections. They would cast this in the concrete, or they would have a flush one that they would bolt to the concrete. And if you want to add the break lines, that's also a detail component, I believe, or I think it's an annotation symbol. No, it is a detail component. So I think it's already loaded, so we can load the family, go up. We'll be in the detail items, general, and then break line. Basically, it's a break line with like a wipeout on this side. I changed the jag width to 1.5 inches, so it's a little bit tighter. I didn't like the other, the width that looked kind of odd. So if you hit spacebar, it'll flip it around. And you can just grab the little arrows to tighten up the cut line. I think there would also need to be fasteners from these joists to the girder as well. Let's move on to the next detail. So that's detail 1. The next detail I'm going to add is for this, the footing on the exterior wall that doesn't have. Oops, I'm going to turn on the walls in this. So I think I have a structural. I'll make these architectural so we can see the other architectural features in here. So that's on the properties palette, dimension. I'm going to hide this cut view because I don't want to see it. So I'm just right-clicking, hide in view, category. Just going to rename these other details real quick because you can't, Revit will not let you number the details the same. So you can have number 2 details, it'll blow up. So if we look back at our book, this detail here is probably pretty similar to what we have, where we have wall coming down, sitting on top of the plywood with our header joist and then the sill. And it kind of shows how they flashed all this. And they've got some insulation on the outside and insulation in here. So I'll show you how to add all that. So let's load a detail component. We'll go to thermal and moisture protection, and then we'll do thermal insulation. And we'll just do this rigid insulation selection section. And we'll just show the 2-inch insulation. And we'll also put it down here next to the footing. These are line-based detail items, so we can go to the Modify tab, hit Trim Extend, and extend it theoretically. Or you can just pick the end and grab it. Here we could go back and edit our topography. We could add the negative points too. So we can find our detail 3. And add points. Oh, because I changed the architectural, it disappeared. Let's change it to coordination instead. Same with this guy. We'll change it to coordination instead of architectural, so it should appear in all of our views. And we'll annotate this detail. Let's do a line dimension and detail the footing. Hit escape when you're done. And go to text. We'll call our foundation wall 8-inch foundation wall. 8-inch. I'm just hitting TX for text, or you can come up here to the annotate tab and then hit text. And then 2-inch rigid insulation. And we're going to call this 2x8 sill plate. Those floor joists per plan. We'll call that wall or plan. Call it wood stud wall. We'll call it exterior wood. I'm going to turn off the crop region visible so that it don't have those lines. As you can see, I'm just adding some additional points to clean up the foundations. I'm going to add another detail component just so we can show some trim. So let's add this wall flashing through wall too. That's located under your detail items, Division 7 thermal and moisture protection, and the sheet metal flashing and trim. I might just use this as a starting point and then kind of create our own, but we'll just use it for now just to show that we want flashing here. I'm going to mirror this so it's on the other side. I'm going to mirror by and draw my own access point. Oops, I forgot to hit to not copy. That's okay, I'll just delete this leftover. We'll move this up so that it's equal to the top of that footing, but I'm not sure what it's going to do to the exterior elevation, so I'm going to open up the exterior elevations, go to that side where I cut that detail. I think think I wanted to stop up above there. So I'm going to go to the Annotate tab. Just want to clearly show how we want to add the flashing to here. Go to Annotate tab, Detail Lines. Let's pick medium lines. And basically, actually first let's pick hidden lines. And we'll draw a hidden line about 1/16 of an inch from the face of the plywood. We can give it an offset. So basically we would want they're going to have weather barrier on the outside here, and we'd want them to put flashing at the bottom. So I'm going to use a medium line. Basically, you'd want to profile something like this. It's similar to what the default one is, but this one's a little bit different. So you'd want the flashing to come down here, and you would want to make sure that the water would hit this vapor barrier. I'm going to move it over actually 1/8 of an inch, or another 1/16. So we can see it better. So I'd run the weather barrier over on top of the flashing, so if water gets behind here, it comes out and then goes over the top of the flashing and then drains out. So in this detail, you can kind of see the dashed lines is the weather barrier. And then they've got this flashing that comes out over here. They have the insulation on the outside, and we put ours on the inside, and that's okay. Just going to tighten up some of this text. We can just do another detail line. To represent the weather barrier. Go to detail line again. There's actually a fillet arc, so you can click each side of the line to get the radius there. I'm going to move this insulation callout up. vapor barrier, point to it. Like text. Come over here and just call it GSM galvanized sheet metal flashing. And we'll point to the dashed line and call it weather resistant barrier. Let's call that header joist. Make sure my concrete foundation wall is 8 inches. Yep. And we can move our tags and line them up. And then you'd want to go around and do that for all of the different, all of your different details that we cut. I changed all of the disciplines for all of them to coordination so we can see the wall. And I'm going to create another video to finish detailing these out because this is over an hour now. So, but you kind of get the idea. You can place your details around here. I'm sure I am looking at them to see how I should organize them for the best way to organize them so that they make sense and they go in some kind of order. You can kind of refer back to your plan. So one is here. Call this 2, 3. So I've got 1 in the center here, 2, 3, and then now let's do this other one so that they at least go in that order. That makes sense. You see, when you move your details, they will snap to the same location so that they're actually lined up. So moving the detail title to line up with the detail titles on the first one, so they're all the same size. You can see when I grab it and move it, you can see the little dashed blue line where it locks it into place. So that's 4. You see as I moved it up there, it's actually locking it in so that the level 1 is at the same level. And see, because this has got a grid 3, it locked it into the lineup with this grid 3, and then it lined it up with level 1 there. Turn off the crop views. And the last one's at that, the deck kind of footing. I'm going to move so it actually cuts the footing so we can see it. You can see I'm just adjusting it so it looks better on the sheet. You don't want it to be too big, so to see the first couple I detailed, I keep the text notes tight to what I'm calling out and try to keep the details tight as possible. So there's some of our foundation details. We got our girders in and our posts and columns, and then we got some footings in for our exterior posts. And we'd also want to cut some details for our garage as well. Let's just do one more for the garage, and then we'll call it a day. Detail view. Change the discipline to coordination and change it to 1 inch equals a foot. And that is detail 7. And I think I had mentioned before, we'll want a footing. We'll want a little 6-inch wall here, a little 6-inch concrete curb, so that the wall isn't sitting right on the slab on grade. Okay. All right, let me know if you have any questions. We'll continue this detailing in a separate video. So just let me know or email me or come to class with some questions. And let me know if there's anything that you need me to clarify. All right, thank you.